Because it does get a little toasty in here.
Yeah, it can get warm.
And all the tables and chairs are in the car
They're
barn?
stored in the car barn,
Okay.
along with a bunch of water.
Okay. Sell it.
Yeah, we're trying.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Speaking of water, have we reconsidered not providing cups?
Nope, we have not. My position on that would be, we're doing what's right for the environment and for the financial position of the club. Two. I mean, the amount of cups and lids and straws that were created from that was astronomical.
And the garbage around the golf course.
Well, people just don't care.
I will say this,
They complain, and we get complaints, but
Do we have an alternative to sell them like a $2 or $3 plastic cup?
It's not $2 or $3,
Or $5?
it's 10.
$10?
$10 plastic
Free drink
cup.
with it.
And you get a free drink.
Okay.
And then just-
Or they can buy a bottle of water. We have plenty of bottled waters.
I was skeptical at first, but the amount of, the less trash that's on, especially straws and lids, it's amazing. It's amazing, it really is. It may, especially around the driving range area and stuff, around that cooler and around the water cooler we have there on the back of the range. I mean, there's always, that was every morning, that was an undertaking to get all the straws and
Even in the
lids.
lakes, you could see all the crap all around the lakes.
Yeah, it really has made a big difference from that aspect.
It's $1,100 a month in expense,
Wow.
plus just the pure, what we're doing in the environment. I mean, come on, you gotta be socially responsible.
Totally agree.
I will say this, if anybody on the board here needs a styrofoam cup, I still get them for my guys, so they can have some water, so we don't go through that many at all.
Okay.
But, so if you ever need one, yeah.
I bring mine up.
I always bring mine up. I have my tongue. Okay. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay. Item 6. Item 7, the budget. Item 7. Tab 7, for the budget for the year. On page 1, the legal fees, is that Tony's fees that come through the general fund, or they split? Okay.
A lot of his fees are split 3 ways. For instance, his attendance at this meeting would be split between the general fund, irrigation fund, and golf course fund.
Okay. I'm just wondering, do we think we need to, I mean, we are going to be asking Tony to do an awful lot of stuff this year. Do we think we need to increase that from 6,000? And Chuck, on page 3, we have to take out again and put Tony in there?
I guess to the extent that the board does any validation or borrowing, those fees typically come out of any bonds or issues.
Oh, okay. So if we do a bond, that'll all be incorporated with the cost of
Yes.
the bond purchase? Okay. You're comfortable with the 6,000 for the year?
I can't speak to it.
Okay. And so each one of them is, okay, that was my only question with that one.
Is the goal to keep the assessments the same year over year?
I think we should.
What I will do to achieve that is reduce the amount of, increase the fund balance. And that's the number under the expenditures. It's currently sitting at 162.80. I'll decrease that to bring the assessment level down from where it's currently sitting at 580, 168, down to 575.
I don't think so. We don't.
Yeah, do you have to?
Excuse me.
Got the bid, huh? Got the bid?
Okay, so still the debt service, the O&M is 575, irrigation is the 7768. Page 10.
this.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Actually,
Most recent cash
there,
491.
that's going to result in a small increase of about $3 per unit.
In
If you want to
irrigation.
keep that flat, I can utilize some of the surplus fund balance to reduce that down and keep that flat as well. You were sitting at year-end 2020 as a part of your audit, you were sitting at about 866 in unrestricted surplus fund balance.
Okay.
Most of that was depreciation that you've accumulated over the years to do exactly what you're going to be doing here in the next few months, which is replace the pump station, reset the useful life.
Okay. So irrigation,
So I'll infuse some of your surplus fund balance to bring that assessment down.
okay,
So we'll have those both flat.
okay. And then, since we're not raising it, you still have to do public notice?
No
only
need for the
raising
notice,
it? Okay,
that's what we like to avoid, otherwise we end up with a room full of people here, and it doesn't matter if it's $2 or $200.
It's a shorter public notice
yes, okay.
and less expensive too.
Yeah, it's a simple double ad in the newspaper.
I have, John and Jeff, and Bill, might you have any questions with the budget? Any questions?
Well, this might be a good time to throw it out. It's not really a question about the budget, I think it's about the budget. You know, in dealing with the bondholders, they said that, funds to repay the golf course bond have to come from the golf course. We couldn't loan them any money from another fund, et cetera, et cetera. Give them money, I guess. What if we waived the golf course irrigation fees? With the intent the golf course would pay that back once that bond's paid off? That would give the golf course extra money to go towards the golf course bond. Just not charging for the water for several years, maybe 5 years. And what is that? I'm all over the place, but it really has nothing to do with what page I'm looking at.
Okay.
It's just an idea. But I mean, when you're looking at it, what does the golf course pay a year in irrigation? It's what?
Pay a lot, right?
No, between, I'd say, it was about 100 grand, but I'd say we're down to about 80,000, 75, 80,000. Yeah.
$80,000 is what it's been.
I think we're proposing 95,000 for
All
next
right.
year.
Yeah.
Can
Could
we
we
not?
waive those golf course charges, not with the fact they will pay this money back, so the golf course could use that money that they spend on irrigation to go towards the bond, to pay the bond off earlier, and then start paying us back in arrears for what they owe. So,
A deferral.
yeah.
Yeah, the only
I
issue,
think we heard the auditor tell us you needed to actually pay
The subsequent year?
any transfer
Well, yeah,
back
I
and
mean,
forth.
once you said that,
because
kind of why I was asking
In your
that,
concept, it's not going away. It's going to sit there on the books. It's still a due
Right.
to,
It's
due
due.
from. To have that sit there more than 1 year was problematic in his eyes. And yet I threw it out there and said, well, you can pay it off, then you can turn around and borrow it again a couple months later.
I don't know, I just thought it might be a way to accelerate that 7%
Yeah,
interest.
yeah. Cost of borrowing, absolutely.
Pay an extra 100 grand a year, is that what you're saying, towards the bond?
Towards the bond, yeah.
You got 5 more years?
yes, 20, well, there's,
28, but will be done in 27.
because there's one already in the rears, and we're trying to get, by this time next year, to put another one in. The goal would be to get to 2025, because, obviously, with the age of the greens, we want to get to the position of being able to replace the greens sometime 2026 maybe, as quickly as possible, because, to John's point, when we lost parts of the greens here, the French drains and all that is antiquated and not done correctly in the first place. So we need to get that fixed, and we need to finish these cart paths, because a lot of, expense that we have for fixing golf carts has to do with the fact that the unfinished paths, once it starts raining like this, creates a lot of issues.
Plus lost revenue from
Plus,
Not being able to get on the golf course.
plus, basically, if you had completely finished golf cart pass, there's no reason to ever be closed except in a torrential downpour.
Yeah.
You can basically open any time. I mean, not that it's that big an issue, we don't lose that many, we will, well, depends. This year, we've been lucky, knock on wood, we haven't lost that many days, but we've had season days where we've lost an entire day of season, which is 20 grand, because we couldn't open the course, because it was undrivable. Well, if we were on finished pass, we could do that.
Yeah.
Lock them down on the path and let them go.
Yeah.
So what do you think of deferring it? Is that something?
Oh, I'm going to have to ask auditor
Okay.
if it's doable. There's a creative way of doing it, so we don't end up getting thing with the no.
Okay.
And does that go around the, I mean, we're not giving them money.
We're just not paying a bill.
Right, but it ties into exactly what the auditor told us. that
Right.
Due tos, due froms, the interfund stuff really should be cleaned up in the subsequent year.
Okay.
And outside of that, I just want to find out what's the negative of not doing that. I have a feeling it'll be a no. You'd
Right.
end up with a finding, which is that last page that we went over.
Right.
And saying, that, we need to get these cleaned up on an annual basis. Hopefully not detrimental to your credit worthiness, but I always like to try to avoid a no in your audit. For the very reasons you want to go out and get financing.
Right.
And potentially get it rated financing.
Right.
Those kinds of things you just don't need.
Okay.
You think the bond holder will push back because they like that 7% tax-free
Oh,
return?
Dan loves that for sure.
Yeah.
So
ITG made out well on that.
what are the chances they'll cut that?
Dan, from what I understand of the bondholder, he can be aggressive in protecting his interests and asserting compliance with the bond covenants. Is that a fair
I
statement?
guess that's what I'm saying. Would even that be in compliance with the bond agreement?
As I recall,
We can prepay, but they have to agree to it.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
Well, the golf course can prepay, but it has to be with golf course funds.
right. Which is
So
what this would,
technically it would be. golf
Technically,
course
this would
funds.
be.
So they would have a surplus to be able to apply those funds.
Right.
because the board made the decision to defer repayment to the general fund. And it helps the golf course accelerate with their own funds paying down the bond.
Would that fall under like something about like good faith in a deal? You know what I mean? Like, I guess we would have done it earlier if it would have been a good faith to do.
You're still paying the full amount that he's due. I mean, it's not like we're stepping out on it. We're paying the full amount due, we're just paying it early. And he's still getting the 7% interest. He's just getting it
I think
early.
the biggest issue, the biggest issue is.
Yeah, he wouldn't get the full payout, right?
Is a payable to the general fund. I think that's what Chuck, the auditor said, you need to pay that down every year, or else you get the note. And if you want to maintain not having any notes like that,
Well,
that's important. That's what Chuck and check with the auditor. I think that's
Yeah,
important.
I mean, check with the auditor and
All right, my only-
Pender as well.
See how much leeway there is.
My concern would be.
I don't think that doesn't have an impact on the budget though. So I think
No, I
that if
think
we
we
can get
can
our
do that.
answer back and we're still good with this budget, it's just how you're going to treat the money, the revenue during the course of the upcoming years.
Right, and I'm thinking if we're going for a bond, let's keep this as clean as possible until that gets fully approved and we're working on it, because I hate to go that far for them to say, oh, well, you will do all this, so.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to
I don't know if-
overly detrimental, but I like to avoid it if we can.
Yeah, the fewer questions, the better off.
Because I think you guys really have a good opportunity to go for a rated bond, which
Yeah.
will really drive the interest rate down.
Cool. Okay.
Something to think about.
Yes, thank you. I'm going like that. Are there any other questions with regard to the budget?
the only thing I would say on our budget is under administrative expense, there is the additional $60,000 in there for building maintenance. I know it's on the agenda for later on to talk about with the remediation for the air conditioning. So that is on there. If we come to the conclusion that that's not going to happen, that can drop off, and that would bring up our estimated revenue line about $60,000.
Okay.
And we had talked about, with the legal expense, do we want to move a little bit that, but if that's all going to be under the bond, I guess we
No, we
don't really
don't
need to do that.
So Chuck, I think we're okay to do your adjustments for the budget. I think we're good with that. Jeff, John, and Mike, thank you. You guys have done a good job with us. I appreciate it. Update on the landscape committee. I did speak with Scott Smith from Juniper the other day. He's waiting for some CAD files from Johnson Engineering. I forget who he spoke to, but he's looking for those. To do that, he has not yet set up a site visit, and there are some times that John will have to work with him, and I think he did feel that there were quite a few days that he could be out here without John, but John would be available for someone to do that. But they're right on board with it. They're looking forward to this, so looking forward to seeing what they're
We reached out to Amanda Martin, so I'll try to maybe give her a little nudge, make sure that she saw it.
Okay.
Eileen, I forgot to mention, did you want me to talk about the lift station before, or is there somewhere down the line we can?
It's,
Okay.
actually kind of here, but we can tie it.
In the potential sale?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's all I have for the landscape committee right now. We're waiting on them, and they are working on it. And Scott will be reaching out to you and me as well. So.
Okay.
The pro shop remediation. You all received the email that I had sent to Chuck and Tony with regard to our meeting with Mr. DeSalvo and Ms. Stansfield. We are still under the impression that we don't need to do it right now. I did notice on the doors, I think it's from the humidity and everything out there. I did ask Jeff to buy a dehumidifier for the building, just to that, but there's been no more spots on the ceiling, no more leaking. So they're still kind of, until you got the email, but they feel that the triple indemnity, they're not responsible for anything. So they have asked us to, Kobe Coolman's going to come out and give us an estimate to maybe do parts of it. I'm still not sure that we need to do it at this point, but we'll let them go through their, what they feel they need to do, and we'll address this further. So that's where we are with the pro shop remediation. And we did address with them to, if we have to do it, one section at a time, and to give us the same consideration that they gave Duffy's and the cost to our rent. Because I said to them, we don't have the money to put it in. I just don't have the money now to give you to do that. So we're waiting to hear back from them on that issue. Tell me anything?
No, we had the conversation about the concern with regards to the various activities, the loss of income, shutting down, interfering with the operation, and the lease says they have access to make repairs, additions, alterations, and the landlord's required to provide reasonable advance notice and shall not interfere with the conduct of tenant's business within premises. So we talked about that, and so I think that's probably why they came up with the concept of doing it incrementally, I guess.
Right. So
They recognize that particular obligation on their part?
Yes, they did recognize that part. So as part of that meeting, and it is not here on the agenda, we had a problem with the lift station, and of course when people said lift station, I didn't really years ago know what they were talking about. That's where all the wastewater goes. They had a problem with it. They did ultimately have it fixed, and I still have a problem with the fact that we pay half of what Duffy's was paying.
That's what they're asking.
That's what they're asking. And the bill was over $13,000, almost $14,000. And I said, we have 3 sinks, 2 toilets, and a urinal. And so I asked them to rethink it. In the lease, and after speaking with Jeff, that 17.36% is what Florida Power and Light came up with. That was our share of it. But I also said to them, their comment to me was, well, it's always been done this way. My comment was, just because it always has been doesn't mean it always has to be. So they're re-looking at that. Duffy's did already pay their portion of it. And I said, I'm sorry, I just don't think that we need to pay half, of what they're doing. So
Totally agree.
at this point, I told them we were not paying until they came back with some reasonable, valid explanation as to why we have to pay the same as Duffy's. Just because it's always been done doesn't apply with it. So we're working on that. Now, they are asking, and I gave Chuck a copy of a proposal to build something around the lift station doors so that the sand and dirt doesn't go into it. It was over $5,000. Quite honestly, Andy was a bit appalled that it was that much. I did ask John to contact the company and just say what actually you're doing so we would have some idea. And John, you spoke with them?
Yes, so I did. I called them Friday. Had a great conversation with the gentleman, Jason or Jeff. I'm sorry, I forget his name, right off the top of my head. So basically what they want to do around the lift station is pour a footer and build a wall around the lift station and the vault for the lift station. So the lift station, the vault is probably, I don't know, I haven't looked down in that lift.
Two doors?
Yes, on the ground, and it's round. And then you have the actual lift station panel or the electrical components, and they want to build a concrete wall around those two together, encompass both of them. And we have a drain that's right there. It won't affect the drain. He took measurements to protect it from like heavy rains and stuff like that, from sand washing down into the lift station, because it's actually the same ground level as our drain. And from washing sand and everything, because they just put in all new pumps and all new internals in that thing, and he's like, basically it's brand new, and it's privately owned, so that's why you're having this issue. He's like, we can leave it alone. He's like, but you're going to be replacing it in probably 5-6 years because of all the stuff that going to get in it over time. He's like, but he's like, I've had to do this 2 other times. It's worked out great. He's like, we can paint it green, make it blend in with the grass better. He's like, not real noticeable. He's like, make the wall about 12 inches high. He's like, my problem is I can't find anybody willing to do the work. He's like, it's the material cost. You got to do, because the amount of concrete involved is under like 3 yards, you're going to pay a short batch fee, which it's almost the cost of getting a full batch of concrete. He can't find anybody who wants to take on something to them that would be that small of a project, because there's so much other work out there right now for that. And it's very, very labor intensive. It is. It's labor intensive. There's a lot of digging that has to be done. Most of it's going to be by hand, because you're going to be right next to the electrical panel and that lift station, which are usually fiberglass. When you start digging down, it's like a big fiberglass tube in the ground. They're not that strong. If you hit it with a piece of equipment like a backhoe or a mini hoe, you'd crush it. You'd break into it, and then you'd have a whole nother, now you're putting a brand new lift station in the ground. That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Is there any way, because that looks like it's down in a gully, because I went out there, I didn't know where it was, I asked Brian to show me. It looks like it's down in a gully. Is there any way to do something temporarily to divert the water to that drain? I don't know how it all comes in.
I wish the best thing to do is either what they're proposing, or to somehow, and I'm sure they could. I'm sure it's happened before, some of the circumstances arise, but to somehow put a riser on the lift station and raise it up to where the top of it's actually higher. Then you could add dirt, or and you wouldn't have that issue. I'm sure they would have proposed that if it was a cheaper option. That, even in my mind, is a much more costly option. If it could be done, it would have to be. I know we could probably pour the form and form up the concrete. My issue is, what if it doesn't work and something happens? What does that do for us? And you know what I mean? Like, what is that? Is it our responsibility? Are they going to try to come strictly after us because, well, this wall, you didn't do it right, or So there's a
Fine line.
And if you really want us to do it and pursue it, I'll get Dave out there. We'll look at it and try to figure out a way to get it done. I mean, it's pouring concrete and forming stuff up. It's not that hard to do.
Well,
Yeah.
so,
But it's a very labor intensive. On the backside of that, on the electrical part of the lift station, there's a lot of digging. You know, have to call before you dig, have them locate the wires, see where they're coming in from, all that good stuff.
well, let's, I know Andy was going to see if he could pursue and get somebody else. Because
Yeah.
$5,000 was kind of outrageous.
And, you know, I would say probably 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have balked at it. But with the way everything's going right now, I don't know if that's not that outrageous, but yeah, I mean, it strikes you as high, right? To do concrete wall.
Yeah.
Concrete, I mean,
And the
yeah.
other thing with that is that, again, Duffy's uses far more than we do, and I wouldn't want to split the cost, so,
Exactly, yeah, you got that issue of who,
yeah, so, thank you for looking into it, just keep it in the back of your head, and we'll just,
yeah.
Where is this thing located?
It's directly outside of the putting green wall, the fence, the gate there. So if you're standing,
Go past the mailbox.
oh yeah, on the pavers, there's a little gap there, and it's right there on the other side.
You'll see
You'll see the electrical
box.
panel, then if you look down, you'll see a drain, like a metal drain, it's probably 12 inches in diameter, and then like a corrugated, not a corrugated, but a diamond plate steel with doors, that's the access to the lift station.
And it's amazing, because that really is in a gully.
It is.
It was,
It is.
it was done poorly.
It is, yeah, that should,
Never should have been that low, I mean, you know, it just really, okay, so, but we'll wait and see what he says about the first bill, and then what he comes up with this.
And you could, another thing you could do that might be cheaper is remove a lot of material out of there, pull a lot of dirt, but you don't know exactly, one, where the irrigation is, how deep is it originally. So if you start pulling stuff up top, you're obviously creating a much shallower coverage, and if you don't know what you have,
Right.
there's heavy-duty electrical wires running to that service panel for the
Yeah,
lift
there's
station.
another plate over it to seal it. I mean, how often she said they maintain it monthly?
Yeah, I mean, and even then, like, that's a, much better idea than I proposed, rising it. Is there something you could put over it to seal it, and then,
Kind of like a, and I'm just, again, I'm not real good with this, like a box to put over where it would be higher, where it would divert the water around it, not just something flat on top of it. I don't know.
no, but I mean, I don't see why you couldn't cover it, and then if you had to come, it's not like you have to service them a lot.
Right.
They hardly ever come out, and in 10 years I've been here, that one is flooded out 3 times. And I've seen them out here probably maybe 2 other times on top of that to service it.
Could you check?
You could cover it with like some thick, heavy-duty plastic or something thick, and then just wrap it up underneath it, and then there's no way that sand's gonna get in it. Now, it might sit on top, but you could be able to maybe try to get it off, and then,
Could you call him and ask him, and just say the board had the suggestion, maybe just put something on top and seal it on top? What do you guys think? I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking, if you had, take a shoebox and put it on top of it where it would divert around the sides.
yeah, you'd want to cover it, like, if this was you'd want to cover it completely, so
Right.
as the stuff covers the top, it won't be able to come up under the lip. It
Yeah.
would all, come down, and then you could eventually remove that, and then remove that, and then you have a clean access panel. It's a lot more work for them, and that's probably why they don't want to do something like that. They want to be able to just come up like FPL. They want to come up and be right there, ready, and if not, they're ripping stuff out, and they don't care whose it is or what it is.
Okay, well, could you check with them?
Yep.
So that's where you are, police station and the irrigation. So we're just waiting to hear back from Andy on both of those.
And I have a meeting with her, Christine, on tomorrow. And do you know what this is about, by chance? She said she wanted to meet with me. At Duffy's.
I have to tell you, Jeff, you sat in that meeting, and I asked her that any time you are doing anything here, any bills coming in, any work coming down, I want to be notified, and I will disseminate it accordingly.
So,
I want to know what it's about.
I have no idea. She said just wanted to meet with me. And she was supposed to be today, but we had the meeting, and I didn't have any,
Okay.
I didn't ask what it was about. I said, sure, I can give you, like an hour window on this.
Did she send you an email with regard to that, or she called you? I mean, I'm just
think she sent me an
annoyed
email,
that-
yeah.
Because I specifically asked her to copy me on anything she was doing, anybody here.
Yes, you did.
And because I said communication is poor at best. So,
Oh, there you go.
okay, well, you know what? So you're supposed to meet with her tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow morning.
All right,
yes.
I'm going to email her today and ask her what the meeting's about. And remind her, and I will copy you on.
Yeah, because I don't even know what it's about. I know, I mean, they'll probably land something, landscape issue or something.
Right.
I would just suggest, from a professional standpoint, don't go to the meeting, you don't know what it's about.
Right.
Always ask.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to go in there blind?
Discuss.
Well, she doesn't scare me, I'm not intimidated by her, so it's not like, I could, what's she gonna say, you
You
know?
want to be prepared.
Right, I know.
And she should
With
have-
you guys,
She
yeah.
should have courtesy back to you and tell you what we're going to discuss, so you know what the heck to prepare for.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if we're talking, who we're talking about.
It's anybody.
Just, I would go back to her and say, what do you want to discuss tomorrow?
And copy me on that.
Yeah, copy her, and then you're
Yeah,
all set.
because I want to know what it's about. I mean, this is just not because, it was what, last Thursday, so it's less than a week. And I specifically said, you do anything with anybody, I want a copy and I'll disseminate it. Nothing. Okay. And if you guys get anything in the future, just say, have you contacted Eileen? I mean, I have no problem with it. I mean, but that's, you know, she's going through the back door and she probably wants you to do that lift station thing. I'll bet that.
That would eventually help them too, whoever them is, I mean, everybody.
But
From a management standpoint,
Absolutely.
their business.
I don't know if I can agree with that 100% because it's eventually going to get back to you. It's not like I'm going to agree to do that with her, not talk to you first, you know what I mean?
But the bottom line is, I should know.
Yes, you're absolutely right on that, Sam.
And that was my specific question.
Maybe she's doing it just to test you. Maybe
Yeah,
she's
well.
testing you.
She's testing the wrong one. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Release the crap.
But I will email her and ask her what it is regarding.
Okay, thank you.
Can I come?
Yes, Phil.
Okay, what am I?
Okay. The potential sale of the building. We discussed this with Andy and Christine last week. And I need to ask the board if they are interested in having a term sheet prepared to go ahead and purchase the building. I did tell Andy that we were considering it, and we were not looking to him to be the mortgage holder on this, but that we did need to see the term sheet. He said that both of you, Chuck and Tony, that you would do a non-disclosure agreement that would need to be agreeable to everyone.
To the extent we can.
We,
Public body.
absolutely.
We may,
And,
I think he understood that.
yes, and he said, you know, and I said, well, one board member will, you know, for the sunshine laws, but, you know, I said we were very interested. So I need a motion from the board, and then we can discuss it. Do we want to pursue having a term sheet to look for the purchase of the building?
Yes. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so I think we need to put a term sheet together. Andy was quite adamant about the fact that, you know, we're not violating the sunshine laws, and he said, we're well aware of that. But I do think that's where we need to go with this, to look at, I mean, this would be for the building, the roads, the landscaping, and, no, the pump house is going to be very big. Can we put can the pump house go on this, Bob?
Oh, you're talking about the
Okay,
bond?
we've got sufficient funds.
We've got sufficient
Yeah, we'll
funds.
take a borrow more funds.
And I did talk to Bill Reynolds and Lloyd with regard to the community center, financing that through the bond as well. The 5 million was high. They said $1 million. I think Chuck redid some of the numbers to look at $1
I
million.
put 1.5 in the numbers.
Okay, so, but again, they would have to get approval from the community, number one. Number two, their big concern was, since this is being funded through the district, outsiders would have access. And I assured them that they would have to pay a fee to be a member or a participant in the clubhouse. They would have access to no other amenities within the community. And if they needed to use it, it would be on, they would still have to plan for it. It's not like they could just walk in and have, anything at any time, just like anybody else. So I think that was their biggest concern, that it was just going to be open to the public. And it really,
It's not like we're taking out a billboard and advertising it either.
Right.
All this.
And I did say to them that the fee would be comparable to what the fees are for the community residents to use the facilities.
That's at least the minimum. You can actually apply an escalator too.
Chuck,
Like a 0.25 or a 0.5, or reasonable escalators.
Chuck, you're saying if we put it in the bond, it would have to open it up to the public?
It automatically is as tax exempt under IRS code.
Whether it's in the bond or if the community builds the building?
Well,
The
if
community
it's in the bond under tax exempt IRS code, it has to be open to the general public. You don't have to advertise it.
Yeah.
So very few, if anyone, would probably ever know that. But to safeguard against that, you would adopt a policy with a fee, a non-resident member fee for them to come in. And you start with whatever you all are paying in terms of debt retirement and operations. Those two numbers together, and then can apply an escalator, make it a 1.25 or 1.5. Just has to be reasonable.
Yeah, it can be a reasonable rate, and then we basically have two classes of membership in it. One would be the residents or property owners, and the other would be non-residents. And you can have to have equal rates within that class. We have two different classes, and so it's appropriate to have it.
Right, and they would still have to, if they wanted it for a function, they still have to book it, and it's not like they can just walk in and do that. It would still be under the same guidelines that the residents would use it.
But Chuck, that would only give them access to that particular building?
Yes. They could not use any other amenities because nothing else would be paid for through the